Alright everybody, welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're here talking about Darth Vader being added to Dead by Daylight. And as you can see by my drawings here, I drew a little bit of some Darth Vader stuff. So getting right into it, I was thinking he could be a 32 meters, maybe 40 depending. Tall, 4.6 meter per second killer. The weapon would be the Youngling Slayer 9000 or just a lightsaber. The M1 basic attacks can mimic the movies, make the noises and stuff like that, and the cooldown could be a twirl after a successful hit. That's how I would think, right? And then the power is a little bit interesting. So I was thinking that he could try to throw his lightsaber, get hit through multiple targets. Maybe he can make it so that it does deep wound for the injured survivors, or maybe you could just make it so it downs them, just so that it's more threatening. Not sure. It's also like, I think that I've also seen it in Battlefront. Like, it actually, I think what it can do is like it can injure somebody who's healthy, and then if somebody's like trying to body block, you can actually maybe apply deep wound to the other person as well as it hits through them. So maybe like the deep wound could be like an added bonus to that just so that you get rewarded for like getting a double hit, which would be pretty nice. But that's sort of like, which we already know that this move is extremely iconic, and as you can see by the little like brown rectangle, I was kind of trying to mimic that style of them kind of like launching the saber. I do think it could be a multi-layered type of power here. Like, you can have one part be the throw, right, and then you can have another part be the force choke, which I think the force choke in itself is also extremely iconic. Like, you desperately need to have it be this way. And alongside the fact that I'm kind of thinking in the vision sort of like Pyramid Head, where it's like a 4.6 killer, pretty tall, potentially, and then you also have it so that his ranged abilities are very good, so that his chase won't suffer, and it'll give you some options. And that's why, because I would also think like maybe it's stronger on like single targets, but it also can maybe injure multiple, so maybe it can only down one at a time, but like maybe it just like maybe it has deep wound for the injured people that like maybe it hits through or something like that, because you know that it is able to do that. I do wonder, maybe there's a way around that. Maybe he could like launch it and break pallets with it or something. Maybe, I don't know. Is that too much? Maybe he could just use the force and break it that way, potentially, probably. Maybe he can. Do you think maybe he could like launch the pallet at somebody? Would that be too much? So I was thinking, what if he could force pull when grabbing, like say when they're injured and you vault over, like what if they're able to you're able to basically grab them with the force as they're trying to cross over, or you can use the force choke as an M2, right? So like, you can kind of make him like more dangerous around pallets and stuff like that, because of the fact that it's already going to be difficult, as killer in general already is a pain for M2s, like M1 focus killers like Ghostface and Trapper and stuff like that. So I would want at least this killer to, be able to do something for tiles, be able to do something. Now, I was thinking that maybe you could make it so that the lightsaber could go through walls, because I mean, we do know that it can cut through pretty much anything. And in terms of stuff that's within DBD, like I do think that it could be able to do that. I don't know if it should, but I do think it could be interesting if you were to be able to like kind of launch it. Maybe they can crouch under it potentially. I don't know if that's too much, because I know that they're going to cry about balancing, so that's why we want to kind of keep it sort of in the sweet spot where it's still fun, it's still good, but also like relatively balanced in that kind of way. I also wanted to cover maybe like different ways that the power could kind of work. Obviously in terms of like utility and things like that, but I do think that he could be very strong in chase, and that's kind of what I want to lean on when it comes to this kind of thing. I also am thinking like he could use the force on different animations. So I was thinking he could use the force on different animations, stuff like being able to maybe pick them up off the ground and like be able to kind of like lift them up with his left hand, lightsaber on the right hand, and that kind of thing. I might have forgotten to put that in the video though, gosh. So I wanted to talk about a couple of perks that we potentially, maybe, I don't know. Let me know if these perks are any good, all right? But we got this one called Fearful Presence or something like that. Maybe like when they first enter your tear radius, like they are hindered for like a second or two, because it is Vader. You know, maybe like they're like afraid of being in the tear radius and that kind of thing. Maybe that could be like a perk. I have this other random perk that I thought of, which was like called High Ground, where basically you see the auras of survivors above you. You could probably write a description like, "Oh, it's happened once, not never again," type stuff or something like that. I don't know. It just seems random and probably pointless, but it's something. And then we have Droid Master here that I wrote down. So I was like, what if you can slow gen progress for each gen that you kick? Maybe like by like 5% or something. I don't know. Just because like he does have knowledge with when it comes down to technology, droids and stuff like that. He was really able to build stuff like that. I wanted to at least have a perk that has something to do with that. These perks are probably terrible and they're probably horrible, but I don't know what kind of perks to add at this point. There's so many perks in this game. It's really hard to think of anything unique for it. But I can tell you other stuff that we can talk about. Now, there's possibly like different add-ons we can talk about as well. I do think that there's like stuff like all sorts of things, but I think it would be pretty simple. Like you could probably have stuff like his gloves as an add-on to throw the lightsaber further, or you have something that can, you know, the nitty-gritty of add-ons. I think is, you know, I'll leave that to the professional dev team. You know, and maybe for people who can make a much stronger concept other than these drawings. But the idea still stands. I like the idea. I like the like sort of concept that, you know, the animations kind of use the Force and use the lightsaber in unique ways in that kind of way. When it comes to add-ons, I think it'll probably give him stuff that revolve around throwing and force choking. Maybe like, you know, things like, I wanted to touch on the voice lines because I know that people are a bit concerned about that. So the voice actor himself had stated before he passed that he would be okay with AI being used for his voice. So I wanted to include that in here as well. Also the cosmetics. I drew a little bit of an image of like with the mask sort of like cracked kind of thing, which is pretty iconic, I would say. And maybe like you can have you know, something else for it as well if you want to go about it that way. I do not think that he could have a, like, his prestige cosmetic would probably have to be different though, because I don't imagine that they would want his I don't think they would want Vader to be covered in blood, so I think they might have to do something else with that. So tricky to say the least with that, as well as the idea that, you know, which anybody who's kept up with Star Wars content lately has known that we did get a sort of AI voice in Fortnite, and I know that maybe some people are against that, but the voice actor himself had said that he wanted people to continue to love the performance and enjoy that, and he wanted them to be able to use that to be able to continue that, you know what I mean? So in my opinion, I think it would be fine. You know, it doesn't have to be the same exact way, but if you just use the AI to, you know, fill in those voice lines or use lines that, you know, fit stuff that he would say, then I think that's perfectly fine in my opinion. I think that it stays true to the character, especially because he did get the blessing of the person who literally voiced it himself. But that's how I would see it. And in terms of cosmetics, I think it's a bit tricky. Maybe we could, I feel like maybe you could include maybe like Sith Anakin in there with the hood and the Sith eyes. Like you could kind of do something like that. Maybe make the lightsaber blue for that cosmetic. I know that some people may be like, oh, what about a map, or like, what about survivors? I think it would be a little bit difficult to do. And only reason I say that is because I wouldn't imagine that's like anybody who's as powerful as like Obi-Wan would be a survivor. Like it just is not something that I would imagine. It would have to be somebody much weaker. Maybe like Padme or something like that. Like somebody that's not a hero but more like a bystander, I think would work. And I think that Padme would be a fantastic survivor because of the fact that the entity would probably want to torment, you know, Vader in some kind of way, maybe to force him into, you know, feeling emotions, which obviously feeds the entity. And I think that Padme would be, you know, which he also did kill her in the movies out of anger. So maybe you can lean into that. You can have Padme as a survivor and that kind of thing. You could do it that way. Map, I don't know. Map, it's hard to say. And you know, I would also want Palpatine to be a playable character, but that's, you know, that's a whole different concept. But anyway, that's what I have so far for you guys. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think. What would you add to this concept? Would you change the concept? What would you want for Darth Vader to be in DBD if he was to be added? Like, what would you want to see? What kind of cosmetics would you want? Like, what kind of stuff would you want to, you know, see added? But thank you guys for watching. Support the channel with the links in the description. Follow on Twitch if you want to watch me play Killer live. Consider becoming a member on YouTube or joining the Patreon. I do live coaching through those avenues. And if you also want to submit a match review, you can do that in the Discord. So that being said, thank you guys. I'll see you guys in the next one.